There is a lot going on in the stock market recently. There's a lot going down too. Welcome to my weekly review. Today is March 1st, which begins a new month. And let's face it, February is pretty rough. Those of you who belong to mcstockcharts.com got the tables from the seasonality, in February is typically a pretty weak month, and March is better. So I would expect that to hold true in March. Hopefully things will be better. It couldn't be much worse, although, yeah, it can. You can't take anything for granted. I just wanted to point out this black line here. That's your 200 simple moving average, and it traded down to that on Friday and then bounced. This correction here from December 16th to February 28th is 9.1% roughly. So a garden variety 10% uh, correction, but you can see it was correcting through time here for a long while, 2.5 months. And last week it decided, or last 2 weeks, decided to correct via price, which I prefer because it gets it over with quicker. We want to see some capitulation selling here and this bounce off the bottom to be powerful, but we take what we can get. This is day one of an attempted rally. And I wanted to point out this black line here, the 200, because it touched down here prior and during this bull market. I'm going to go back a year to 24. You can see it did it. Let me get the exact date here. I believe it's early August on that three-wave down pattern back in August of 2024. So it bottomed on August 5th and rallied. And if I go to 2024, it'll give me the 23 profile. And you can see that it pulled back to its 50 and stayed down there for a couple of days, back here and then again here. So let me get those dates here as we come out of the bear market in 2022. This is really when the bull started, in the spring of 23. And it pulled back on March 13th, stayed down there for a couple of days once again. In October, as you can see, this three-wave down pattern here. And then rallied November 2024. And I'm not going to go back any further. So that's 4 times that it's touched the 200, found support and bounced every time. Will it, bounce this time? We don't know. It looks good so far. And this is day one of an attempted rally. So we have to wait to Wednesday for day 4 to get, the shorts. It could be just a short covering phenomenon. So anyway, just wanted to point that out on the Nasdaq. 9% correction, garden variety. It went from, a time correction through a price correction and now hit the 200 and bounce. This looks textbook to me. My expectation would be that it would follow through in March sometime. I'm not saying it's going to go up right away, but at some point it'll stabilize and trade higher. That's my expectation. It could obviously just slide right on down to lower prices, as we saw down here back in 2022 when the Fed was raising interest rates the fastest in history. So, there's a precedent for that now. Anyway, that's the NASDAQ. Market correction over 9%, garden variety down to the 200, bounced. Price correction now following the time correction of 2.5 months. I think this is setting up for a bounce in March, but I'm always kind of leaning bias positive, so you got to take that with a grain of salt. I don't want to be too negative here. And there are some stocks that are doing well, and I'm going to show those after I go through some of the earnings reports last week. I'm a big earnings guy, and I just got to point out, earnings last week, Domino's reported. And I'm not really concerned with the data as much as the response to the data. Domino's had a good response. Hims and Hers, I've switched my mind on Hims and Hers. This thing had a big run up, then pulled back to its 50 for the first time and then bounced. This thing looks pretty darn good. Buy point there at 35, so it's a little extended above that buy point, but a pullback um, to the 50 and a bounce is very encouraging for Hims and Hers. It's a top stock and a top group, so it's definitely one that I'm watching. CAVA reported, had a negative response, got upgraded on Friday, had a little blip, 5% move, but below the 100 there, that looks pretty rough for CAVA. AXON, that moved lower prior to the data point, had a good response to the data, and then fell off. And if you're looking at weekly charts, this is a weekly. It was up 2% following the prior week into the print. It had fallen like, I don't know, 25%. So that's pretty rough. Move. Home Depot reported, not much. It's okay. The Home Depot and Lowe's just don't do much for me. Anyway, I don't even know why I showed those. Home Depot is a big, builder, home improvement type of stock. DigitalOcean, a software name, reported, had a nice response as well. And then Energy, NRG, this is a utility, which has been a strong group and what had been a strong group until that whack day, had a decent response. But this group has been since the DeepSeek news on the 27th. That entire cohort has been a little rough there. If they're have any involvement with the AI build out. Snowflake reported nice response. Another software name with a nice response. NTNX, another software name with a nice response, trying to hold around that buy point. When the Nasdaq, oh shoot, I got to go back. I got to go back because before I move on to this week's anyway, this was up 10% while the Nasdaq was down like 4%. VST, I mentioned the utilities whack day since it got whacked here. Vertical violation on the 27th, tried to rally up, and just got knocked down like a bully pushing down the little kids in the schoolyard. This thing's getting pushed around now, so you got to stay away. It's good to know what to own, and it's also good what not to own. And this is a Norwegian Cruise Line, with the tariffs and everything. This is people don't know how to respond to these cruise line stocks, and also it had that new virus scare. So yeah, good reasons to stay away from those. Unfortunately, DELL reported no good. Duolingo, pretty decent report, but this thing sold off hard, 17% on Friday. So if you're just going by the reaction, that's not good. TMDX, decent reaction, 5%. This thing has been down so long that 5% is just a blip on the radar, but all they can do is report good numbers, and they did that. And then the last one is Rocket Lab. That had been rallying hard and now pulling back. I like to see these names that have been, just going nuclear, pulling back, like Oklo is one, and then the quantum computing, those, the nuclear quantum, they just got a little ahead of themselves. Now they got to pull back. Anyway, I'm going to go back to the Nasdaq because this is a weekly report, and I just have to show on the weekly it was down 676 points last week, or 3.5%. You can see that pull back to the 40-week line, 6% above the average weekly volume. And then on the month was, this gives us good perspective. I had many people talk to me over, Friday, and just say, we've had a good run the last couple of years. We had 25% moves, right? And since that, bear market, you're not going to get 25% every year. So if it gives back, 4 or 5%, after two 25% years, that's good perspective. You can't expect it to go up every month. So we got a little slight pullback. I would say this is definitely still in an uptrend and now at the lower portion of this range. So that's why I'm saying, a 780-point move lower, 4%. I think we get some back next month. The volume was lighter than the 3 prior months where it went up. So I'm just going to stay positive here. And I have good reason to be positive. I know a lot of stocks are down, a lot of stocks, more, the advanced decliners. I get all that. The breadth of the market's not good, but there's always, bastions of strength. So I'm just looking for strength. I'm finding it in a lot of these foreign stocks. This is a Spanish banking stock. I'm going to go through these quickly because I'm not in them. I don't own them. I'm just saying that money is coming into these stocks, foreign stocks, mostly Europe. This is a British banking stock, Barclays. That one is doing pretty well. Deutsche Bank, this one's pretty popular. German bank doing well. ERJ, this is a South American defense of name, Brazilian. And you can see this one is doing well. Yum China, a food stock in China, hanging in there, doing pretty well. This is a weekly review. So yeah, it was up 5.8% last week. while the Nasdaq was cratering. So, and then Santander, this is a Spanish bank, 6% last week. You can see the breakout moving higher. I'm not going to go through all these, just pointing out money's coming out of the US market and going into these global markets. All right. I'm going to go to an area where I'm just showing strength today. And this is Gilead, broke out of a base, continued to show strength, up 4% last week, while our NASDAQ was down how much last week? Yeah, 3.5%, and Gilead's going up 4%. That's a tell right there. In my book, I don't know. WGS, this is the, I believe they reported last week, but anyway, up 7%, and just showing strength. If you look at the daily chart, if you want to do that, you can see it broke out, then pulled back to its moving average. That was probably the earnings report. But anyway, showing strength, that's all I'm trying to do here is show strength and not be, negative Nelly. This is ABBV. You can see this base here forming near that pivot point, up 3.5% last week. Thank you very much. I think you'll all take 3.5%. Jazz Pharmaceuticals, up 5.5% last week. Thank you very much. Eli Lilly, this is a beast of all the drug stocks. You can see it kind of broke its downtrend line a few weeks back, right there on that big pop, kind of went sideways, and last week up 5%. Come on, this is flashing neon signs of strength here. While the Nasdaq's cratering and the market's cratering, this thing looks pretty damn good to me. There's your break of the downtrend line and the rip higher. So, and then the last one is CPRX. I believe they reported last week. Still consolidating within a base here, as you can see, but and it's up nearly 6% last week. So I'm just trying to show you strength. There is some strength in defense. I'm not a big defensive guy. Howmet up 5% last week. GE, I like GE a lot, up 3.5%. More strength while the market is creating. And then a new one, IPO. This is out of Huntington Beach. I've got to look more into this. I don't know much about it, but up 7.5%. You could see it's just a recent issue there. So it doesn't have much of a trading history, but that's why I'm going to do more investigative work on that one. All right. I did mention the utilities, and there were some utilities doing well. This is LNT, kind of a slower mover, but up nearly 3% last week. Wisconsin Energy, or WEC, up 2.5%. So some of these utilities are showing strength. So there's a lot of sectors that are doing well, even though the advanced decline line is telling us there's more stocks going lower than higher. XEL is another one. AEE, just another utility, had a 3 weeks tight, then popped 3% last week. ETR, another utility, up 2.5% last week. And CMS, I was going to put this one on the ready list, but I didn't. You could see that double bottom base, up 2% last week. All right, I'm going to move on to the trash stocks. Pollution control. This is waste management. I did have this one on the ready list. Last week, it had this 3 weeks tight pattern and popped 2% last week. So, you're going to take 2% in a market where there's your 3 weeks tight and then the pop, the market's pretty bad. It's been pretty rough in February. And when you get these stocks showing strength, I don't think you should ignore these. That's why I'm pointing them out. And I'm going through them quickly. But you can always write them down. ARIS reported last week. This is one that I didn't have on the report, but yeah, nice 18% pop on the week for ARIS. I'm going to move on to one of my favorite groups is the insurance group. Yeah. Anytime it's going up 6%, I'm not saying that I like insurance. I can't stand getting my insurance bill, but I like stocks that go higher, and these are going higher. This is Gallagher. AIG last week had a strong week, up 8%, breaking out of that base. So just a lot of strong stocks in the insurance group. And I kid, insurance is not one of my favorites. But, stocks that go higher, I like stocks that go higher. So what can you say? All right. I'm going to move on because I like the finance group. Not kidding. This is like insurance to me and defense. This is Mr. Cooper, finance loan, taking on loans. Got that sales and earnings growth, man, just marching higher. It's a Kelly Slater stock, just surfing its 10 EMA. So Mr. Cooper looks pretty good. MasterCard and Visa, once again, yeah, 3% last week. MasterCard, Visa, thank you very much, up 4%. People are using their credit cards, I guess. Don't do that or pay it off at the end of the month. Don't acquire debt. Bros up 4%. This is one of my favorite stocks. I did a video on stocks that I expected to have good years, and I expect Bros to have four. They're going to report four good quarters this year. I'm just going to say it. I don't see their momentum slowing. It got rewarded. You can see the breakout here, and then the breakout here a couple of weeks ago. It was above 80. Okay, went up to 86, pulled back to the 21. But you have to expect it to have a little bit of I don't know, resistance, a little bit of trouble at that old buy point of like 81.50, the old high prior to the Fed-induced bear market where they raised rates fastest in history. 81.40 from November 5, 2021. So let it go sideways there for some time before it really breaks out. So to me, this one's just getting started. I think this is like buying Starbucks in the 90s. You're going to have a nice run with Dutch Bros. I'm biased. I like Dutch Bros, but anyway, I don't see their momentum slowing. Okay, so since I mentioned them, Starbucks is doing pretty well. Made a 52-week high last week after the breakout, surfing its 10 EMA, and you got to like that, breaking out of that stage one base. The cup with handle here on the weekly had the 3 weeks tight, moving higher, up 3.5% last week. So Starbucks and then some of these other food stocks are doing pretty darn well because you got to eat, right? That makes sense to me. This is Darden Restaurants. Acquired Chewy's and Olive Garden up nearly 5% last week. Brinker International, talked about this one a lot. Chili's Maggiano's pulled back to moving average, bounced only 14% last week. DoorDash is another one that I like. Food stock delivery pulled back to moving average, flat on the week while the Nasdaq was down nearly 4%. MKC, this is kind of a slower mover, the seasoning group, and I just wanted to point this out, breaking out of this double bottom base, 3% last week, and I think this one's still actionable right here at 82.20, so it's right there. All right, that's it for the food group. And the last group I want to point out is the software names. And like I said, some groups, this is AppLovin, was a big leader. We had it on our leaderboard since about 86 back in August. And I took it off, from 86 to 525. It had a hell of a run. So congrats to the long. Sometimes you just got to say, say la vie or, adios muchachos. And I doubt when we have a new rally, I doubt if AppLovin's a leader like it was the last time. Same with the Palantir. Had to say adios muchachos. This has been on our leaderboard for a long time. And had to take it off below the 50. I just don't think with the new rally, this is going to be one of the leaders. There's other software stocks showing signs. This is Take-Two Interactive, software gaming stock. This is a weekly review. This one's flat on the week, 3 weeks tight pattern. I like this one. Snowflake, flat on the week, setting up in a base there. Still looks pretty decent. Elastic, don't count this one out. Still setting up in a big base here. Had a 3 weeks tight, then pulled back to moving average, popped nearly 10% last week. NTNX is another one that I'd mentioned earlier, up 10% last week, breaking out of a base. Definitely one to watch. There's some others. I'm not going to get into them now because I got to move on. Kind of lied. DigitalOcean's another one that I like. If it could just break out of this long, consolidation pattern. It was up 9% last week. So there's some software names showing signs, and I'm going to move on here and just say, in honor of the great Steve Jobs, one more thing, and that is earnings next week. So I'm a big earnings guy. I mentioned Bros as a stock. I think that will deliver 4 solid earnings reports this year, and I think TGTX is another one. You could see it got down near the low of its trade range. They report on Monday. They're going to report triple-digit sales and earnings growth. What I want to hear from them is their cash flow, and I want to see their earnings. They're expected to have really strong earnings this year. If you look down here maybe $1 in earnings. And I want to know if they're, increasing their share buyback program. So there's a lot of things to look forward to from this earnings report on Monday morning. Okta is reporting this week. Okta, it's going to be a big week for the cybersecurity names because we also have Zscaler and CrowdStrike. ASTS reports on Monday as well. I'm not a big fan of that one. Target, retailer, I think they've been having their market share taken or lunch eaten by Walmart. We'll have to wait and see. And Costco. SE, this one intrigues me. I kind of like this stock. It had a nice pullback the last couple weeks. They report on Tuesday, and I mentioned CrowdStrike. This is the big beast in the cybersecurity space. You can see it pulled back the last couple weeks. I like a pullback going into earnings. You can see it had this breakout from 389. It ran up to 455, pulled back to the 50 for the first time since the breakout. I think it's setting up pretty well for its earnings report. And then CRDO is another one that I like, but pull back below the 50, I just can't do that. They report on Tuesday as well. Abercrombie and Fitch, a dead retailer. Not expecting much from them. Foot Locker, same category. Ooh, man. That looks painful. And then MRVL, they're reporting on Wednesday. Zscaler reports on Wednesday. That's kind of like CrowdStrike, where it had this, pullback prior to earnings. So we'll have to see what Zscaler. I don't think they're doing as well as CrowdStrike, but we're going to wait and see. MongoDB reports this week on Wednesday, and then VEEV medical software. Viva Systems reports. And then on Thursday, we get the China stock, JD.com. You can see this is set up in a base. That looks pretty darn good. BJ and Costco both reporting on the same day next week, Thursday. KR, another food stock reporting. And then the big one for the semiconductors is Broadcom. This one's sold off harshly. The semiconductor names have just been sold off really aggressively below the 50 here. That looks bad. Maybe Broadcom can save them, but we know I did show you earlier, I believe, NVIDIA reporting did not help, did it? I'm ignoring the Mag 7. And, NVIDIA, they reported this 140 is just, it's been going above 140 and below 140. 2 quarters ago, it reported, ran up to 152, pulled back to 140. Prior to this report, it sold off to 113. It reported, then it was down to I don't know. It didn't hit 113, but it came close on Friday, 116, and then bounced. So probably up to 140 again. But to me, that's dead money. And then the last one is IoT. Samsara reports Thursday, and I lied because I have the oil and gas stock out of Argentina. YPF reports Friday morning. That's it for me. Thank you for watching. Hang in there. Get that watch list ready. I've got mine. I'm going to keep it tight. The watch list is tight. The focus list is even tighter. Got to be super selective. There are some stocks though, in this market. I know it's been rough, but you got to be vigilant. And this is the time that's critical where you do your homework before the move, right? You want to own these stocks before the move. And I've got a handful of them. I had this one last week and it pulled back. I know people don't like these. It makes you seasick, right? It was up 22% on Friday, but it was down on Monday and Tuesday bigly, right? Yeah, people can't handle this type of volatility. Down 18.5%, down 12%, then rallies up 5, 10, 22. And for the week, just pretty much, flat. That's a lot of volatility. But I'm telling you, there's stocks out there that are doing well. And I showed you a bunch of stocks showing strength. I have some stocks for the ready list on Monday morning. Can't wait. Have a great weekend, everybody. Never give up.